I'm a survivor of child abuse. I was physically, sexually, and emotionally abused for the first maybe 12 years of my life, 12, 13 years of my life. I finally had it and literally put a gun in my head and pulled the trigger. But God had other plans. The gun jammed on me. And then I spent 6 years trying to take my life. I tried overdosing, it didn't work. I tried hanging myself, it didn't work. I tried electrocuting myself, it didn't work. I tried anything and everything to take my life. And it just seemed like there was a divine intervention that I did not know of yet. But I did have a priest, Father Stevenson, and he said I would see him every day, and he would say to me, "You have a special call." He says, "If the doors close on you, go through the window." And I just thought that was the strangest thing to tell someone, especially a child, But I held on to that. I really held on to that. And I knew all of my life that there was something different about me. And I wanted to meet God. I wanted to be with God because I knew the intense relationship that I had with God, the love that I had for God was deeply profound. And it's that love of God that got me through, really, the darkest days. I believe that God has been speaking to me all of my life. And God has provided, again, individuals to come into my life to plant the seeds. And we're talking about not religious people. My mentor and role model, Lois Joyce, doesn't even know what Protestant church she belongs to when she grew up. But she believed that there was this divine that God wanted so much more from me. She knew that. But I felt God. I felt God's presence in my life. I heard God's voice in my heart. I knew. The only thing that I have always known, and I still say this to this day, the only truth that I know is that there's a God, and that this God is taking care of me. And it wasn't because of my family. It wasn't because of my friends. It was because God revealed that in my life. And so, I had dreams, and I've had, visions, and not mystical kind of, scary stuff, but just, when we daydream, and we're sort of in our own little heads, for me, that was a fulfillment or a time, a space where God was present with me. So the only thing that I ever knew was God. I knew that everybody else was going to come in and out of my life, but the only thing that would never leave me was God. I was pregnant, so I had been homeless and pregnant, and so I was pregnant in this room, and the only thing that really kept me warm in the wintertime was this fireplace, this amazing fireplace. And I had to figure out what I was going to do. Was I going to, I didn't believe in abortion, even though this pregnancy came out of an assault. I knew that I didn't want to do that, but was I going to give my son up? Well, at the time I didn't know it was going to be my son, but was I going to give this child up for adoption? So I went to the adoption agency, I spoke to the lady, I shared with her everything that had happened, and she turned to me and said to me, "You're not going to give this baby up. I've been doing this for 20-something years, and I know that you're not going to give this baby up." And at that moment, my son kicked. And I knew that this was a gift from God. Again, I didn't know, I didn't have a GED, I didn't have a high school diploma, nothing, and I'm in this room. What am I going to do? Now I have a child that I'm going to bring into the world. Is he going to be another statistic? Am I going to be another statistic? A young Hispanic female, on welfare, and the kid is, going to be a criminal, because that's the stats against me. That's what society says is going to happen to me and my son, is that I'm going to be on welfare and my son is going to be a criminal. I didn't want that, So I went for my GED. I got my GED the day my son came home from the hospital. 3 months later, I was in college, community college. And 18 years later, 19 years later, my son is in his second year of college. I should have been dead. I should have been dead. I should have been in jail. I should have been, I should have been a lot of things. But I trusted my instincts with God and knew that if I was faithful to God and faithful to what I felt God was doing in my life, if I just kept following that path and going through those doors that were opening, that everything would be okay. Everything would be okay. My God of my understanding was going to make everything right in my life. My son is an amazing young man. He's creative and has a personality that would light up a room. Never gave me a hard time. Always, he always did the very best that he could for himself. As a teenager, you're waiting for this child to tell you that they hate you, and never did that ever come out of my son's mouth, He just was a stand-up. He is a stand-up young man, and I'm impressed. I'm impressed with who he was and who he is and who he's becoming. And he's faithful. He has faith like you wouldn't believe, and he really has an incredible relationship with God. One that I didn't push on him. This is his faith. He's owned his faith, and it's been a beautiful thing. I'm in the doctorate program, doctorate of ministry program, the DMin, and my hope is I'm doing it on multicultural, multi-generational evangelism. I wanted to continue my studies. I knew that I was doing something pretty special, and I wanted to be able to compact that into a way where, if there's other people that maybe want to do this, I would be able to show them how to do this. I chose Lutheran Theological Seminary in Philadelphia. I was looking for a seminary that was real, that was about change, and there was an MDiv graduate there that just raved about the school and about the president and about the UTI program. I wanted to see if maybe this was the place. So she had gone there, she had to do something, and then I found that T-shirt, Preach the Damn Gospel. And I thought, this is definitely the place for me. If they have this shirt in the bookstore. And then I had heard about the president and what he did in the inner city. And I just thought, this is definitely a man that I can be proud of. And if he's leading this school, then this is the school I want to be part of. So it really was a chain of different things. But I'm looking for people that want to do ministry, real ministry, not a superficial 9-to-5 ministry, but some really deep-rooted ministries. And I think that this is the place. That's the seminary. I am a pastor, and I'm a pastor of a traditional church. You know, we play organ, and you know, we have acolytes, and everything is very official. And I enjoy that. I robe up during the day, and you know, I live in a nice suburban area. And then on my free time, at night, when you know, I suit up and I wear my jeans and my collar shirt rolled up, you know, sleeves with my tattoos showing, and I walk the deadly streets of Camden, which I don't consider dangerous, and others do, you know. So it's not, I'm the same person in the daytime as I am at night, but the roles or the presentations are very different. The hurt and the pain of the world doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. And who's there after 5 o'clock? Who's there at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, when you have a woman who's been beat up and raped and has nobody to tell her that she's worth something, that she's loved, that God loves her, that she has a God that crucified himself and rose again for her. There's nobody there, nobody. You know, I mean, John Wesley was a man that took it to the streets. Jesus Christ took it to the streets. I really think, for me, scripturally, we've become Pharisees and Sadducees. And we need to learn how to be disciples again. Well, first, it wasn't my idea to go out in the middle of the night. It was actually a prostitute that was coming. I was in a church in Camden, and there is a Saturday feeding program. And one of the prostitutes said to me, "You need to be out there. You don't need to be in here." And I thought, okay, that's strange. She says, no, we need you out there. So you know, come and see us out there. So I thought she meant during the day. So I walked around during the day. Hey, how are you? How you doing? And she said to me, "Pastor, I don't mean during the day. I mean at nighttime." And I said to her, "Are you nuts? I'm going to get killed. You know, I can't go at nighttime, you know." She says, "I'll go with you." And so I met up with her one night, and we walked around, and it was like a different world. There was different people out. You know, I mean, it was alive. It was like, if it was in the middle of the day, there were so many people out there. The only thing is that it was a different class of people. And I was scared out of my mind. I said, I'm going to get killed. But what I realized is that I've allowed society to tell me to dehumanize, to criminalize people that are walking the streets at nighttime. Immediately, whoever's out there at nighttime is a bad person, a person not worth communicating with. And that's what I learned is that they're human. They're in need. They're in pain. They're struggling. And there's nobody there. They're not welcomed. They have been kicked out of society. And who's there? And so the fear left me. It had to leave me. And I submitted and reminded myself again that my life doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people that God has asked me to serve. I'm called as a disciple of Christ to walk the path that Christ has walked. That's what we're all called to be. And so I had to have the courage to be able to do this and remind myself that my life doesn't belong to me. It belongs to God's people. Every night is different, yeah. Different people. There's, let me see, there is two that, actually there's three that are really profound. The first one is, there was this really intoxicated man that was looking through the garbage, and he found a picture frame that he liked, and I guess was going to take it home. And I found it fascinating. I was just looking at him, stumbling his way through and looking in the garbage. I was just looking at him, and then he looked up and he saw me. And so he, asked if I was a priest, and I said, no, I'm a pastor, but, close enough, or something like that. And then I asked him to, he asked me to come to him. So I said, okay. So I came over, and he asked if I could pray for him. And first of all, he reeked of alcohol. But I said, fine, because that's why I was there. And I grabbed his hands, and he literally stood up straight, just straight up. And then he bowed his head, and we began to pray. And it was just one of those days that the middle of the night was no longer the middle of the night. It literally was the middle of the day, and I had so much energy I couldn't even get myself back to sleep when I got home. That was a moment. And another moment that I remember is of this man he was on crack. He was cracked out, and so he was walking back and forth, trying to, he just, he had burst of energy from the crack and could not calm himself down. So I said to him, listen, since you're walking, why don't we just walk together? Since you're walking back and forth, I can use the company. I can use someone to talk to, because sometimes it's just very quiet and lonely at night, And so we did that, and he shared with me his story, and I shared with him, about God. I gave him the gospel, the good news. And we talked for about 2-3 hours till he started winding down. And by the time we were coming to an end, he was sobbing. And so I prayed with him, and then I went home. And I give them all my cards. They have my address, they have my phone number, they know how to reach me. And this man reached out to me. And when he left the message, he said that he was in a rehabilitation. And that it was that night that he went and got himself help. And for weeks, I kept missing his phone call, but almost every week for I don't know how many weeks, he was calling me to let me know that he was better and that he was stronger. And it was just so profound for me that me having a conversation with someone, not asking him to change, just having a conversation with him changed his life so much that he got himself help and is clean. See, that's the thing with my interactions. I won't see the numbers that people have changed. I'll know that they're no longer there. I'll give you another example. I can give you 100 examples, but another example is this young man. He was living in what we call the tent city, and he called me one day and he says, Pastor, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. So I said, fine. So I had a friend of mine go pick him up and take him to a meeting, and
what kind of meeting?
It was an NA meeting. And so he went, and I, went about my business. I got him connected. I didn't hear anything from him. Well, I was at a meeting at church, and my congregation members kept saying, there's this big man looking for you, there's this big man looking for you. And I was just like, I looked all over the church for him, and I couldn't see him. So again, went back to the meeting. All of a sudden, I felt someone behind me. Now you don't step behind me without me noticing, because you're going to get knocked down. And so I just felt like this huge presence behind me, and I turned around, and sure enough, it was him. And he had come back to the church to let me know that he was clean, and that he had a job, and that he had an apartment, and that he even had a girlfriend. And he just picked me up. I mean, he's 6 foot something, picked me up and gave me a hug and said, thank you. And it was just the greatest gift for me. And he is a reminder of why I do, or what I did what I did and do what I do, and introduced my congregations to that. I believe that as a pastor, what happens a lot of times is that we preach to our congregations what to do and tell them that they need to be out there in the world, but we forget to be out there in the world with them. We point to them and say, you need to do this. But we forget that we need to do this. And so it's sort of a long journey that we both take together. And I get that a lot from my congregations, that, I'm a pastor that preaches, but I also go and do the hard work. She's one of those congregations, and this is just her sharing her story. She just came to church because that was the thing to do. Not because she really felt anything, or really, it was just something to do. And so when I came, I had given this certificate of 50 years service, and I gave it to her because she was here for 50 years, And she got upset over it. And so she came to the parsonage, and she was upset, and she was crying, and she says, what have I done in 50 years? I've done, what have I done? What does this mean? And so she was about to retire, and she didn't know what that meant. And so she started shadowing me. Pretty much she would go on visits with me for all my shut-ins, and she would, and then she wanted to start going out with me to the homeless encampments, and it changed her world. It changed her world so much that she just had a life-transforming moment, and she recognizes Jesus in her life. She recognizes the Savior and what it means to have Jesus Christ as your Savior. And so every day of her life now, she tries to serve the way God would have her serve, and she's my little evangelist. Even though she's a lot older than me, but she's so profound, and she talks about God with such worship and praise in her heart. It's amazing the transformation that's happened in her life. So she's found the purpose for church. The real church, and not the church that we pretend to be. I think it's allowed me to be able to really identify with almost everyone. I'm able to identify with someone who is homeless. I know the feeling of going through the garbage and finding food. I know what it is to go days without eating, or bathing, I know what it feels like to be rejected by society, and how important it was for me to have people say that I'm worth something. But at the other hand, my education has allowed me to be a spiritual leader, and so to be a pastor. And so I think that my experience and my journey has allowed me to be in multicultural settings. I can be in in a predominantly white congregation and be able to minister to them, or be in the streets of Camden and be able to minister to them, and be that bridge that I so desperately want to see in our church. And it is a blessing. It is a blessing. I'm able to tell a prostitute that, has experienced rape as a child and was not able to forgive and let go and really has struggles of seeing their own worth. I'm able to say, listen, you have worth. You can change your life. There is hope. And let me share what that hope looks like within my own story. I mean, we're all worth something. And the greatest gift that I have is that God has called me his child. God has called me and loved me and nurtured me and saved me. And there's such humbleness in that, and so I like to bring that to them. I think it's interesting what I see being in all the different communities is that nobody's safe from being homeless. I encountered a 65-year-old Filipino woman in the tents, and I would never have expected to run into someone from the Filipino community. And so my perspective of who's out there really changed. I have seen the middle class individual go and lose everything and be homeless. I've seen the middle class woman who was a CEO or director of a program lose everything and end up back in the streets doing drugs and prostituting herself. I've seen it, and I think now is a good time for the churches to begin to do ministry within its community, to be that community. The bottom line is that churches should be a place where we support each other, we hold each other up, we take care of each other, and that individual community can be in relationship with one another. And this is a good time for these churches to get out of the pews and make a difference just across the street. I think the churches are in a perfect time to take to be the church that we're called to be. God is a freeing God. God is a saving God. And we have allowed the world to tell us how to feel and what to be afraid of. The mere fact that we depend on something that we invented, $1, says a lot. God has promised to take care of us. And we as Christians, if we say that we believe in God and we have faith in God, that we love Jesus Christ and we celebrate Jesus Christ, then we need to believe that Jesus Christ will be there no matter what. And it's the only solid thing that we have in this world, in this planet, in this universe. The only thing that we have that is solid, that is true, that is saving is Jesus Christ. And when we feel like we're about to lose everything, and even if we do lose everything, we need to believe and hold on that Jesus Christ will get us through those dark days. I have seen it. I've been a witness of it. I honestly did not think that I would be alive today. I really did not think that I would be alive today. I did not want to be alive today. And as I stand here today, I am so grateful to be alive. I'm so glad to be called a child of God. I'm so you know, even in the darkest days, no matter what anyone thinks of me, no matter what anyone says about me, no matter what assumptions or whatever, God is always going to get me through. And I tell my congregation members that are going through a hard time, let the Bible be an invisible rope. And you feel like you're drowning, you know, hold on to that very tight and just watch the miracle that God is going to do in your life.